Mike says that he is audio tested. So he's ready to join.
Okay. All right, let's get going, if you don't mind. No, it's okay. Good evening. The hour of 6:30 PM having arrived, I will call to order this regular meeting of the Joint Planning Board and Planning Licenses and Development Committee. Anyone wishing to view a copy of the agenda and supporting materials will find it on the city website. If you are in our audience tonight, you may access the agenda from any mobile device. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets just as you entered the meeting room. To receive electronic copies of future agenda packets, please go to the homepage and subscribe to the city meetings email list. The public and other board members will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on the agenda item under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. Will the staff please call the roll?
For the Planning Board, Harold Farrington,
Present.
Roberta Mastrogiovanni,
Here.
Mayor Jay Kahn, Councilor Mike Remy,
Here.
Sarah Vizani, Ryan Clancy, Kenneth Cost,
Here.
Armando Rangel,
Here.
and for alternates, Stefan Mayu, Ranjan Markelon, Tammy Adams, and Mike Hafer.
Here.
Right, for PLD, Kate Bosley,
Here.
Phil Jones, Bobby Williams,
Here.
Ed Haas,
Here.
Andrew Madison.
Thank you. Would like to note that I'll invite Mr. Hafer to participate as a full voting member for this evening's meeting. Thank you. At this time, we'll move to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the, was it really July 8th? Yeah, okay. Of the July 8th, 2024 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from the July 8th, 2024 meeting.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Haas, Counselor Haas, sorry. Any questions, comments, or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the July 8th,
And just a quick reminder with Councilor Remy remote to do a roll call vote.
roll call. Okay, sorry, you're right. Thank you. So we'll move to a vote on the minutes. So we'll have need a roll call vote with Councilor Remy on remote.
All right, so for the Planning Board, Harold Farrington,
Aye.
Roberta Mastrogiovanni,
Aye.
Councilor Mike Remy,
Yes.
Ken Cost,
Yes.
Armando Rangel,
Aye.
and Mike Hafer.
Yes.
For PLD, Kate Bosley,
Yes.
Bobby Williams,
Yes.
Ed Haas.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. The minutes of the July 8th meeting are approved. So the next item on the agenda is a public workshop for, let me just bust out my cheaters. Is a public workshop for ordinance 0-2023-16B relating to permitted uses in the downtown core, downtown growth, and commerce districts. Petitioner, City of Keene Community Development Department, proposes to amend Section 8.3.2 of Article 8 of the Land Development Code to add a definition for charitable gaming facility and amend Table 8-1, Table 4-1, and Table 5.1.5 to display charitable gaming facility as a permitted use in the Downtown Growth District and Commerce District. In addition, the petitioner proposes to amend Section 8.4.2 2.C.2.A of Article 8 of the Land Development Code to remove drive-through uses as a permitted use by special exception in the downtown core district. Okay. So,
Mr. Chair, if I might. 1 second.
Councilor Remy, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if we have to follow the same procedures as City Council for me being remote, but just for the record, I'm remote because I'm traveling for work. I am in a warehouse, and I am not alone in the room. So that's the procedures I have to follow for council, so I just want to make sure those are on the record in case it was needed.
Thank you for that. Okay. So in lieu of petitioner, or Mary, did you have comments as the representing the petitioner? Or should we?
I'm happy to provide comments, but it looks like Councilor Bosley wanted to speak.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for sitting through another round of conversation about this ordinance. This is not where we thought this was going to end back up when we sent it off for the last public hearing. But there've been a few changes at council in the last year, and one of those was the addition of Councilor Favalis. And I think that he brought up a really great point to the council as a whole on the floor, and the council tended to agree with him. So I know that this side of the room is aware of that conversation, so I'm speaking to you guys a little bit just to give you some background on why this is back. The idea of the EV charging stations was a contentious point at council. There are several councilors who, regardless of their opinion about EV charging stations, felt like it was unfair to target a use with a specific requirement that is something that the council wants to see as a ordinance brought back separately as a whole. So we believe that the Energy and Climate Commission is studying this and has some recommendations coming to us on what they think an ordinance draft should look like for the addition of EV charging stations to uses throughout the city, and that in general to start adding these into specific uses one at a time is a little bit burdensome in the land development code and a little bit unfair to that particular use until a policy is made on it. So on a close vote, but a vote I think of 8-7, the council wanted this amended to remove the EV charging stations, and that requires that it comes back and starts the process over again because it was a substantial change. And so we do need to have a conversation here, open it back up as a public workshop. Our committee will need to make a recommendation for a new public hearing. Our original public hearing will have to, does not apply now that we've sent it back. So we're kind of a little bit at square one. I think we have most of the things that we want ironed out of this, and all of our council members now have had a very clear look at all the details. So hoping that this is not a big discussion for us tonight.
Thank you. Does staff want to provide additional comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Councilor Bosley pretty much summed it up. It's really it's the use standard under E, parking and traffic. I think it's substandard, the last one, 6, underneath that says 2% or 2 of the required parking spaces, whichever is greater, shall be equipped with electric vehicle charging stations. That is the use standard that I believe the council wants removed. And that would create, I believe it's a B version right now, so that would create a C version of the ordinance that would go back and get noticed for a public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Haas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to point out that this was the only issue that was raised in council, this exception. Otherwise, the ordinance seemed to be ready for approval at that time. I'm hoping we can move forward with this change quickly in this process and get this thing going. Thank you.
Counselor Williams?
Yeah, I was, one of those who voted against sending it back through the process. I don't love this change. I detailed my reasons for that at the council meeting, but ultimately lost the vote. At this point, the council as a whole has kind of made its intentions clear, and in the interest of getting this passed, as much as I think EV charging stations are important, and it would be beneficial to have them. I will say, let's get this thing passed and send it back to the council.
Okay. There will be time for deliberation, but any other questions at this time? Mr. Cost, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure I'm keeping up. So the only change from what we all discussed back then is the EV charging station, but the idea that it goes into the Commerce District and all of those streets that we identified and distances hasn't changed. It's not going to be in because the title, talks about the downtown zones, but that's not what we're starting all over from there?
Counselor Bosley?
Thank you, Chair. So this title has stayed with this ordinance from its original version, its original A version. So unfortunately, that has not updated along the way with us as we've modified the locations. But what I can say as far as the council's agenda, we have reviewed it pretty thoroughly. I mean, there's a couple of sticking points that I don't love about it. There's probably a couple of sticking points that Councilor Williams doesn't love about it, Councilor Haas doesn't love about it. But in general, I think we have an ordinance that will pass. The EV charging stations became a hot button issue on the floor, and what is dangerous, I think, for us is to not pass anything. The council has rules about how often it can review items, and if we vote down something, we won't have an opportunity to vote on it again until the next calendar year. So depending on the timing, it could be up to 12 months before you see a vote on this. Say this goes back through public hearing process and ends up at council in January, and we vote it down, it would mean that we were operating without any protection for the entire calendar year of 2025. So there are some rules and constraints that make it a little bit more difficult to navigate. We chose to ask to bring it back here for this conversation to happen, rather than to have it fail at council over this.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I will see if, Counselor Remy, sorry. Please.
No worries. The only other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is a little outside of what we talked about, but while we're still, it's maybe a question for staff, is I, since it's been sent back, have received feedback from a couple different constituents around the distances, particularly as it relates to Key Road, because there is a large residential development that is not zoned residential, that is immediately behind some of those zones that we've identified as eligible. It would not trigger the you can't build here because it's not zoned residential, even though it is a very large residential development. I don't know exactly the nature of that development, but I don't know how it became in that commercial zone. But there was a call out of maybe we should extend the distance to make it so that it's not built right next to that residential development.
Oh, sorry.
An alternate resolution to that would be maybe looking at rezoning that area residential.
Okay. Neither of those seem like a quick fix, but I don't know if we want to just go ahead with the resolution as is, with the
Well,
ordinance as is.
I think that Mr. Cost and I agreed back originally that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that there was some concern about having this use adjacent to residential uses, and we had limited that for some reason to just for 1 and 2 family residential instead of multifamily residential. And I think that we were in agreement at the time that it should be prohibited from being adjacent to any sort of residential use. That leads back to one of the points that I was making that I wasn't super happy about but conceded on originally. I mean, I'm open to discuss that, or if there's some resolution to that.
Okay, well, let's hold that for our deliberation, but at this time, I would invite, is anyone here in the audience to speak to this ordinance?
Good evening, Jared Goodell, 39 Central Square. So I was going to bring up that same point that Councilor Remy just did, that specifically under subsection C that talks about distances, there's 2 items in here that pertain to residential, and that's number 3 and number 4. 250 feet from any single-family or two-family dwelling a casino would not be allowed, and same for a residential zoning district. That Key Road area, which was added, I believe, at the last meeting, is really surrounded by residential. To the north, there's a large commercial residential area. It's many, many units. And then to the west of that is another development. I believe it is Princeton Properties. And so that, if you think about the movie theater, that building is surrounded by residential. And so I think it would be quite easy to change subsection C number 3 to single family, 2-family, or commercial residential unit, which I believe is 4 or 3 or more units under the Land Development Code. I also wanted to bring up another item, another distance item that I think should be added, and that is specifically playgrounds. And that probably sounds interesting to you, but let me offer you this. I have personally seen on many, many occasions where a grandparent or a parent or a guardian of some sort wants to go to the casino, and the kid gets left in the car or sits outside while mom, dad, grandparent, or guardian goes in to gamble. And that is not a one-off thing. I have seen that many, many, many times. And I would be concerned that specifically a casino going near a public park or a public playground or even a private playground that's maybe services 5 or more units, so in a large apartment building, I think that could be dangerous from the sense that mom, dad, guardian, grandparent could say, I'll go to the casino, you go to the park and play. I think that's something that you really, really, really should consider. Again, I wouldn't bring it up if I personally haven't seen it many times. So those are the 2 things that I know are sort of outside of what you initially, the council sent back with the EV charging stations, but I think that, since we're essentially back at square one, these are 2 easy things that could be added and cleaned up, and I think you should consider if you wish. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, so on that I will, hold on.
Ask one quick question.
Yeah, of course, Councilor Bosley.
Is it possible at all, I'm trying to look on my phone, but to get a zoning map pulled up, will that remove Councilor Remy?
Yes, I can do that. Let me just share my screen. Right. So I believe it's up. Can you see that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Is that Key Road?
Yes, so this here is Key Road. I don't know if you can see my, my cursor. And these properties up here are the multifamily residential properties
Okay.
that are,
And so, do we have any background as to why those are commercially zoned instead of?
no. And so this is one question that came up for me when, I don't know if you recall, but I think it was two years ago in 2022. The council amended the zoning for the Commerce District to allow multifamily residential. And at that time, I came across these properties and I didn't know the history of that.
Okay.
So I don't know if they were originally zoned residential and got rezoned to commerce, or if they came in with a variance.
I wonder, didn't we change that zoning to be commerce on first floor and residential above? So these would still not be conforming.
Yeah, so these came in before that change,
Before that
long
change.
before, yeah.
And they're adjacent high density?
Yes.
And do they actually suit a high density zoning? So possibly changing that to high density, would that solve the residential concern with the casinos being
Yes.
adjacent?
Yeah, yeah, because then they would be in a residential zoning district, so it would be that 250 feet would apply.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what goes into the concept of rezoning that particular area? Underlying.
So the process to rezone it would be a zoning map amendment. It would go through the same ordinance process that this ordinance is going through right now.
Okay.
For the map amendment, though, it's really just moving where the boundary of the zoning districts is.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, just hold that. You have a question, or I want to get past the,
I have a question.
okay. Then please go ahead, Counselor House.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we know any other multifamily residential areas in the city that will have the same effect here? That could be within an area that we've zoned now for charitable gaming?
So I'm aware of the Colony Mill, but I believe,
We talked about
I
that.
want to say that the final use standard has the section of West Street starting after Colony Mill for that reason. I would have to double check to make sure. There might be on Lower Main Street, but I can't think of any other location where there would be multifamily, like just a multifamily use next to a commerce property that's in this, that would be subject to this ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay, I do want to just close the public comment portion, and we can move on to our deliberation. So, how would we like to handle the, we have a revised ordinance, clear direction from city council to eliminate the item E number 6 for the EVs. That's a straight elimination. But then we have this, I'll say second and third question. Do we want to make a modification to include not just 1 and 2 family residents, but multifamily as well in the current wording? And then, or do we want to, I guess the alternative there is to leave the wording as is and pursue a zoning map amendment for the Key Road area, since that appears to be the only affected area. But then we also have the third question of proximity to playground or park. So So why don't we, before we have any motion, why don't you guys weigh in on what you think about this stuff? Counselor Remy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The hesitation I have on a zoning map change versus just changing the language to refer to multifamily is we allow housing in multiple zones. We allow housing in the commercial zone, right? So it's how do you, just fixing that doesn't necessarily fix the problem if there's housing in that zone. Because we allow it in those zones. Does that make sense? I guess my point being, my preference is to, if we're going to change something, is to change the phrasing to include multifamily properties, not just 1 and 2 family properties in the original restriction list.
I guess my only concern about that is we don't want to discourage development of multifamilies in commercial zones if you know, if people can build on the 2nd through 4th floor. But maybe that doesn't happen because there's a casino interest next door. You know, we've just shot ourselves in the foot. So I would love to know how to thread that needle.
Counselor Bosley?
Mary, how does it work in reverse? If a casino is located somewhere, that's a great question, Counselor Williams. Could a developer develop a residential, this restriction prevent them then from developing adjacent? Is that what?
No, it wouldn't. What it would prevent is, like, if a developer came in and wanted to do a mixed use, they wouldn't be able to have a casino and the multifamily come in on the same property or happen at the same time. It would be a timing issue. So basically, the casino, if it came in first, it would be fine. If it came in after, then they would have to meet the setback.
So this language inside this ordinance would not prevent further development of residential units in a commercial zone that already housed a casino, because that would be happening with the understanding that the casino was already there? Is that?
Yes, yeah, because the use restriction applies to the casino use, or sorry, charitable gaming use,
Right.
and not to the multifamily dwelling use.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cost?
Thank you. So I like where this is going because it's going to protect apartment buildings and such that aren't in a residential zone, and I think that's what we talked about earlier on, so that's good. But I'm thinking if a developer came in with a, property, one of the big land areas, and said, I'm going to turn this into housing and shops and stores, and I'm going to have a casino and whatever else I'm going to do there, a whole nice mixed-use community, I would think the city would have the opportunity to look at that development and if it made sense and was beneficial to be able to, make changes or adjust or, variances or whatever to get a development like that. I mean, that's what we're kind of thinking could happen. But, if it happens, then I think it would be dealt with. But I think just saying now that you wouldn't build this 250 feet next to any kind of, apartment building or anything is good. And later we could deal with this lovely development we're thinking about.
Counselor Haas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, would that we would have such an opportunity to consider such a massive development. So I just want to clarify, I guess, so a residential area will prohibit a charitable gaming facility based on the distances. But if a charitable gaming facility goes in first, and then residential wants to be built within the distance limitations in a commercially zoned area that we would allow, they're not precluded from that. So the distance limitation works one way, only for the charitable gaming, not for future residential.
That's what I heard.
That was a question, I guess.
That is correct.
Thank you. So, yeah, I think the easy path here is to add multifamily or other residential. And if we have to say something about, no matter what the zone is, I'm not sure that's good legal language, but to excluding what zone it's in, that's the simple way. I respect Mr. Goodell's remark about playgrounds and such, but I just think that'll get us, let's address that later. Let's get something done here and get going, and then pick it apart at a future time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Council Bosley.
I just want to say that I do like the direction that it's going in. I think it honors my opinion from our previous meeting, and I don't see this being an issue at council.
Thank you. Well, I think we're looking at item, so it's 2, use standards, 2C, item 3, no charitable gaming facility shall be permitted within 250 feet of any single-family or two-family dwelling. Is anyone brave enough to suggest an amended wording for this?
Maybe Mary?
Yeah, so the new use standard would read, no charitable gaming facility shall be permitted with 250 feet of any single-family, two-family, or multifamily dwelling.
Mr.
So moved.
Chair, will you accept the motion?
Not a motion yet. That was,
All right, I move that we adopt the language as just suggested.
the amendment, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, second?
Second.
Thank you. We need to do a roll call, so I'll have to ask Mary to read the roll.
Yes, so, Mr. Chair, you may want to consider, and this is up to you, if you want to vote separately on each item, you can, or if you wanted to also, I'm not sure if the board was, it sounded like you were interested in removing the use standard related to EV parking stations. You could include that all in one motion to amend the ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So, Councilor Haas, did you follow that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, so I withdraw my original motion, and now I move that we remove the EV charging station requirement as discussed at council and here, and we add including multifamily residential housing into the limitation as far as adjacency.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Bosley. Okay, any discussion of the amendment?
I just wanted to confirm that we're okay with removing the EV station piece because it's going to be addressed somewhere else.
No, it's not.
It's not.
Not immediately, but
Oh, you mean?
not immediately.
That's-
It's
that's-
Not
going
in
to be
this
addressed
ordinance.
separately
Because-
in a separate
Yeah,
ordinance. Yes,
not
correct.
because of this specific request, but because it could be addressed more generally.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
We're expecting a whole ordinance based on like a comprehensive use standard update for
Okay.
EV.
perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that was the intent, and the Energy Commission is going to work on something that makes more sense instead of just tacking it on to one particular use.
Okay. Councilor Remy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarity, I just want to make sure we're clean on our process. I know Councilor Haas removed his motion, but I just want to make sure, Councilor Bowles, you removed your second too, right? Just to make sure we're clean and we
Yes.
don't have anybody challenging our mode. Thank you.
It was withdrawn.
Sorry. Hard to
And
follow
reseconded.
from here, so I just want to make sure. Perfect.
Yes, yeah, the original one was withdrawn. Okay, so we have a motion and a second for 2 amendments to the previously, or the as-written ordinance. So at this time, we'd like to call a roll for the vote.
All right, for the planning board, Harold Farrington,
Yes.
Roberta Mastrogiovanni,
Yes.
Counselor Mike Remy,
Yes.
Ken Cost,
Yes.
Armando Rangel,
Yes.
Michael Hafer.
Yes.
For PLD, Kate Bosley,
Yes.
Bobby Williams,
Yes.
and Ed Haas.
Yes.
Okay. The amended motion is passed.
And Mr. Chair, so that was a vote of the full committee to amend the ordinance. Now we need the two separate
The
votes.
two separate
Yep.
votes. Yep, okay. So at this time, we'll start with the planning board. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion that the ordinance is conforming with the 2010 master plan. Ms. Mastrogiovanni, if you would like.
I can second that.
No,
Make it.
you need to make the motion for us.
Okay,
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to include that this is relative to
It's
the master
conforming to
plan,
the ma-
conforms with the master plan.
Thank you. Looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rangel. Any discussion? Okay, planning board, all in favor?
Sorry, roll call vote.
I'm sorry.
I can call the vote.
I'm sorry, I forgot my, okay, we need the roll call for the
Thank you,
planning
Mr.
board.
Chair.
Sorry,
Uh,
Mike.
Harold Farrington,
Yes,
Roberta Mastrogiovanni,
Yes.
Counselor Mike Remy,
Yes.
Ken Cost,
Yes.
Armando Rangel,
Yes.
and Michael Hafer.
Yes.
okay, so at this time, I will turn it over to Counselor Bosley for the motion for the public hearing.
Thank you. Would either of you be open to making that motion for me? To ask the mayor to set a public hearing.
I move that we ask the mayor to schedule a public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Williams, seconded by Counselor Haas. We do not have a member participating remotely, so all in favor? And that is unanimous.
All right, great. Thank you. Great. Okay, so now we have a discussion regarding possible future zoning amendments to promote housing. I assume this is staff would like to provide comments?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mary Brenner, Senior Planner. So staff has been reviewing, kind of on a rolling basis, we've been reviewing the zoning ordinance and the other regulations within the Land Development Code, really with an eye towards what we can do to remove barriers to housing development. And so we have a few ideas and things that have already been submitted and will be coming to you soon, and things that are sort of in the wings, and we wanted to just bring them forward and get your thoughts on them. So one of them is an ordinance that has been submitted and will be coming to you for a public workshop in November related to residential lot sizes. I believe we've discussed this in the past, so hopefully this one's not a huge surprise to you. But basically, it's an ordinance that would take away that, we've often referred to it as a density requirement, where you have to have an extra amount of lot area for each additional dwelling unit above the first. And what that does is it forces you, even if you're in a district that allows multifamily and you want to build a compact multifamily apartment building, it forces you to have a lot of land area in order to do that. So it's a cap on the number of units based on how much land you have. And we're proposing to remove that requirement in 3 districts. And I believe in the past, we've spoken about doing this in the high-density and medium-density districts. When we were working on the ordinance, we realized that there's a 3rd district, which is downtown transition, that has the same scheme, so we added that into the ordinance. So that has been sent to City Council for a first reading, and I believe it has already been referred So that will be coming back to you. The next one is with respect to housing opportunity zones. I know City Council is probably pretty familiar with RSA 79E, which is the community, I forget the name of it. It's a tax incentive. So it's a tax incentive program. There was a new element of that that was added, I think, a year or so ago called housing opportunity zones. And so we're hoping to explore that and see where it might make sense to have that in Keene as a way to hopefully promote more housing development there. The number one barrier that we've been hearing from developers interested in housing, running the gamut from a homeowner who wants to build an ADU all the way up to the larger scale developments is the sheer cost of construction right now. So anything that we can do to help to bring costs down would be great. So we're exploring that as an option. And then we are also, I believe, today we submitted for a first reading, so hopefully it'll be going to City Council this Thursday, an ordinance to take a look at the height requirements in the Commerce District. Once again, so a couple years ago, City Council adopted an amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow multifamily housing in the Commerce District, and at the time, the height was increased to 4 stories. We have not seen anything come about as a result of that. I know it's only been maybe 2.5 years since then, but we have recently had a couple of conversations with developers, and the financials still don't pencil out. And so what we're proposing is a further change to specifically incentivize multifamily housing development in the Commerce District. And so that will be coming forward to you. And that would be through an even further height increase, but only for that use and with limitations. Yeah.
And what would be the new height?
So we're proposing 6 stories, which I know sounds like a lot. But again, doing a review of the Commerce Districts, there's already some 4- and 5-story residential buildings that are existing non-conforming without any commercial on the bottom floor. And so we're proposing to go up to 6 stories, but with an increased setback or building height step back, and an even bigger setback if it's adjacent to an existing single or 2-family.
Councilor Bosley?
So 2 questions, if I may. We had the beautiful drawings associated with like the downtown setbacks, the step backs, I guess, so that we could understand that when we passed all of that with the land development code. Will this look something similar to what we're requiring downtown with the step backs at the upper 2 levels?
Yes. We copied that language. We won't be creating those graphics for this ordinance, but.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And second question is, are we seeing these items coming before us? I'm just want to understand our, how we're prioritizing our laundry list of things that we've given to staff to work on. Are we seeing projects coming that you think these changes would be helpful for?
Yes, and the other one that unfortunately, we were not able to get in this round, but we're working on is the parking minimums. So the state law around parking minimums has changed. And we've been working on an ordinance that incorporates the recommendations from our parking consultant, which actually goes even further than what the state law requires. So that's another one that we're working on. So I think that one in combination with the height in the Commerce District and the residential lot sizes, we felt that those would have the biggest impact on actual housing getting developed in the city.
Mr. Cost?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 questions. One is, just so I understand the difference between when you use the word setback requirements or another term we see maybe in form-based code, build-to lines. And I'm just wondering how you choose between, to me, when I think of a build-to, that means the buildings will be kind of uniformly across and addressing the street. And so even if someone builds on shopping centers in West Keene, there'll be streets and, buildings. And when I see setback, I think of, just build back lots of lawn or whatever. And I'm just wondering what you're trying to achieve there between those two terms.
Yeah, so the build-to line or build-to zone is really only in our downtown form-based code districts. And that requires that's almost the opposite of a setback. So for a setback, you have to be a minimum of a certain distance from the road, but you could be even further back from that. You just can't be closer than, let's say, 20 feet if that's the front setback. With the build-to zone, you have a range, so it could be 0 to 5 or 0 to 10 feet, and the front of your building has to be within that range. So it's saying you have to be up on the street. A build-to line is you have to be on that line. So that's probably the most strict. The rest of the city outside of the downtown is all the traditional setback style zoning. So we're not proposing to change that with this ordinance. It would still be maintaining the same setbacks, but if you choose to do a building that's multifamily and takes advantage of that extra height, then you would have to be set back an additional, I think it's 15 feet. Or you could do the building step back, so the first, couple of stories would be at that original setback, and then any stories that go up above that would be stepped back. So the actually building itself is stepped back.
Step back.
Yeah.
So my other question is, the six-story maximum is for residential. Just because there's a commerce district, somebody could build a hotel. Is that a building height regardless, or if I came in with a hotel,
No.
could I build a more than a six-story hotel?
So a hotel would be considered a commercial use. It's not listed under residential uses, so they wouldn't be able to do a 6-story hotel. What we're proposing at least is that increased height would only apply to residential.
Specifically multifamily residential.
Ms. Mastrogiovanni?
Is it allowed to have commercial, like on the, could it be mixed? Could it be like retail or commercial and then go up with residential?
Yes,
in there?
that's required. So the ground floor, there's currently a use limitation that says in the downtown core, downtown growth, and commerce districts, the multifamily dwellings have to be above the ground floor already. And so what this is proposing is that along the street frontage, there has to be commercial tenantable space. So it has to be commercial uses along the street frontage for the ground floor.
So then it would be 5 additional stories above that to make it to 6. right?
That could be all residential, yeah.
And you can also put residential behind that commercial tenant space on the ground floor.
Counselor Haas?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned we're going to have some public meeting on presenting these ideas sometime in the future, a workshop of sorts. We had those great models that were built by the Keene State students that I think Mr. Cost has taken possession of, or, no, I'm sorry, but I think they passed through the library at some point. It would be great if we could resurrect them if they're still in existence and have them at the workshop, just so people can visualize the difference between step backs and setbacks and pushbacks and frontage. So I don't know, do you have any idea where they ended up?
Yeah,
Mr. Cox,
they're at the school, so they're still there.
Okay, thanks. That's a wrap, Mary, for this section.
Yes, and I'll just add that I know there's a list of more time items at the bottom of the agenda, but if this committee has any thoughts about how to order those, feel free to let us know. We're sort of going based off of what we think would be most helpful in the near term. But if you have other thoughts, just let us know and we can shift priorities.
Yeah, in the interest of staying organized, would it make sense to have people just email you their prioritization, or you want it to be discussed here?
I guess it's up to you. I would think, if folks want to think about it maybe, and at the next meeting,
Okay.
yeah,
That's fair.
that could work, yeah.
All right. But that doesn't prevent anyone from emailing Mary if they have a prioritized, a priority that they would like to apply to these. Yeah, Mr. Hansel, would you care to weigh in?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I recognize this isn't a public hearing, so I appreciate you giving me just an opportunity to weigh in on this. I've been talking to the planning department quite a bit. For those of you that don't know, after my retirement from the city, I've been doing quite a bit of housing development, so I've looked at all sorts of types of projects, and I've been hoping other people do it, and it's actually been really, really fun, and I think a good thing for the community in the long run. But I just wanted to weigh in and let you all know that one of the things I see on this list that could be done really quickly and would allow me to move forward with 2 projects that are all designed, ready to go, existing buildings, or just adding apartments to a couple of, making duplexes basically into 3 and 4 unit apartment buildings in neighborhoods that already have them, are the residential district lot size requirements. So these medium and high density zones, Councilor Williams and Councilor Bosley probably remember a couple of years ago when Rhett Lamb was here, we did a planning exercise, and they had all the city councilors and the mayor basically try to put a project together, fit the puzzle pieces together, and figure out how to do it. And there are so many things that we already regulate with setback requirements, parking, just physical limitations of fitting these elements into a lot. These lot size requirements are really just arbitrary. And it just kills me to see a project that I can fit all the parking I need, which is frankly too much. I can meet the setback requirements. I can do all this stuff. And then there's this arbitrary square footage number that I need 200 extra square feet, and that would require me to go get a variance to move ahead with that project. I've got 2 of those right now. And I really think the bang for the buck, housing-wise, in Keene is going to be trying to convert these existing buildings. I think that's where the money is, and that's where I think a lot of the promise is. On top of that, right behind, if I was going to order these, it would be that lot size requirement thing. We should be able to check that off. Please move ahead with that as quickly as possible. The parking thing is another one. Right now, we're requiring 2 parking spaces in most areas for per dwelling unit, and I just think that's a waste of space, frankly, and I don't think it's necessary. And there are a lot of studies that will support that for multifamily housing. And then I think these other ideas are interesting too. The housing opportunity zone, that's all helpful, but I'll just share with you some of what I've learned in looking and scoping out some of these projects. I mean, the bottom line is commercial rents in Keene are pretty low. The problem actually isn't residential, it's the commercial stuff. And to build new commercial space, you're looking at having to rent it for $25 a square foot. And if you look around Keene and what commercial rents are, they're nowhere close to that. Fortunately, they're nowhere close to that. So that allows us to have a lot of businesses, a lot of small businesses. So the one thing you should think about, and I think Mary's kind of brought this up a little bit, is are there ways that we could allow housing on the first floor and not require commercial on the first floor necessarily? Because in order to do that, in order to build new, a multi-story building, 5-story building, 4-story building, and put commercial on the whole first floor, that all has to be subsidized by the residential on top. And I can tell you, it just doesn't work. That's a significant part of the square footage that just won't pencil out financially. So just put that out there as things to think about. Obviously, we want balance in the city. We need to create opportunities for commercial use and residential, but that's just my 2 cents, having sort of looked into it for the past year or so pretty closely. But thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Bosley.
Mayor Hansel, I just want to let you know that on 9/19 on the council agenda, there's a first reading of the ordinance that Mary is bringing here to this committee. So definitely check it out and then come back to us with your thoughts at the next public workshop.
Okay, great. At this time, I'd like to move on to new business. Any board member like to see items added for new business? Counselor Bosley?
I just want to let the committee know that at our last council meeting, there was a referral from Mayor Khan for this committee to review the potential for an ordinance change to the blade signs. I believe in the Commerce District. Is that right, Mary? Do you recall if it was commercial or industrial zone? And so he's away this week in Germany with the Partner City Committee, but we will be discussing that when he's back, I think the following joint committee meeting.
Thank you. Any additional items of new business? Okay, seeing none, I will now move on to item 6, or the final item on our agenda. So the next joint planning board PLD meeting is November 12th, 6:30 PM in these chambers. And that's a Tuesday also, because the 11th is a holiday. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting at 7:29.